Welcome to the deep dive. We're going to dig into a set of sources you've shared with us today,
That's right.
including some really insightful legal perspectives from Hassan Abdullahi Yabarow. He's a master of law, a legal researcher, scholar.
Hmm.
And our main focus comes from a source titled Somalia's Ballot Revolution, Reclaiming Democracy.
Yeah, and this material, it really puts Somalia at, well, a pivotal moment, according to the sources.
A pivotal moment.
Yeah, they argue the nation's really at a critical juncture, facing a choice, after more than 2 decades of a very particular kind of political system.
Okay, let's unpack that. What did that old system look like, based on what these sources are telling us?
Well, it's described as indirect,
Mhm.
elite-driven, a power-sharing model that was around for, over 20 years.
And what did that actually mean, like in practice?
In practice, the sources describe a setup where a pretty small group, we're talking clan elders, intermediaries mostly, they were the ones choosing the members of parliament.
Okay, so a select few picking the MPs.
Exactly. And since that parliament then picks the executive, the president, and so on, well, this small group effectively held a lot of sway over the whole national political direction.
Right. And this setup, it wasn't originally intended to stick around forever, was it?
No, not at all. The sources are clear. It was introduced as like a temporary measure,
Yeah.
during a really fragile post-conflict time.
Makes sense.
But while the structure itself lasted, the argument in this material is that it didn't really deliver consistent stability
Mm.
or accountability.
And what about the average citizen?
That's the crucial part. It largely excluded most Somalis. They had almost no direct say in their own governance. And the sources also argue it kind of weakened national institutions over that time.
Okay, so that's the background, the system that was. Now, these sources point to a really big shift underway. What is that?
Yeah, this is where it gets really interesting, I think. The federal parliament, Somalia's parliament, has actually passed legislation, proper laws, enabling one-person, one-vote elections, universal suffrage.
Wow. That sounds huge.
It is. The sources present this as a truly significant milestone. And they really emphasize that this came from within Somalia through formal legal and political processes.
Right.
It wasn't something pushed from the outside.
So reflecting what people inside Somalia want.
Exactly. Framed as a direct reflection of the will of Somali citizens.
Yeah.
A really powerful demand for, democratic renewal.
And this isn't just talk, right? The sources mention things happening on the ground, particularly in Mogadishu.
Yes, precisely. Despite all the challenges, and there are many, security, logistics, funding, the material points to thousands of residents in Mogadishu actively registering to vote.
Thousands really getting involved.
Actively involved. And the sources stress this isn't some kind of forced participation. It seems to be driven by genuine conviction, a belief among citizens that they can and they should directly shape their country's future.
That level of participation, it really underscores the desire for this change, doesn't it?
It absolutely does.
And the sources also flag something specific about Mogadishu's role, beyond just the voter numbers.
Yeah, there's a specific point made that Mogadishu is currently the only city consistently contributing federal tax revenue.
The only one. Wow.
Yeah, so it's directly funding national institutions. And the argument in the sources is that this political engagement, combined with its financial weight, means Mogadishu's role deserves maybe greater acknowledgement nationally.
Okay, so you've got this strong internal drive. Parliament acts, citizens are registering, a key city is heavily involved. But the sources seem to present a tension here, a kind of disconnect with the international community's reaction.
That's right. This is a central theme. The sources suggest the international response has been, well, a bit muted, maybe even perceived sometimes as undermining these internal democratic steps.
Undermining them? How?
Well, official statements from external partners often rely heavily on words like dialogue, consensus, and inclusivity.
Which sound good on the surface.
They sound like positive democratic values, absolutely. But the argument in the article is that in Somalia's specific context, these terms have often been used in ways that actually empower unelected elites.
Unelected elites?
Yes, and potentially weaken the legitimacy of the established mandated institutions, like the parliament that passed the election law.
How does that work? Empowering unelected elites through terms like inclusivity.
So the sources suggest that the term stakeholders, as it's often used by some external actors, has kind of become a code word. A euphemism, really.
For who?
It's described as a way to bring former political figures, presidents, prime ministers, MPs, back into the political mix, even when they don't hold any current public mandate.
Ah, okay. So people who lost elections or whose terms ended.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And often, according to this material, they re-enter the conversation through international mediation efforts rather than having earned their place back through the ballot box.
And the sources connect this approach, this external approach, to actual negative impacts inside Somalia.
They do, quite directly. The argument presented is that insisting on including these figures who, again, from the source's viewpoint, lack a current mandate at every single stage, well, it undermines the authority of elected bodies, like the parliament. It disrupts critical election timelines, slows down the whole momentum for reform, and frankly, it reinforces a pattern that the sources say has been seen before.
What pattern is that?
The pattern where, as electoral terms near their end, some external partners tend to push for these prolonged negotiations, maybe power-sharing deals, instead of just sticking to the constitutional schedule and letting the established institutions run the process.
So the perspective here is that even if the intention behind using terms like